So we're going to talk about a couple of things, finish up the content that was covered in the Chapter 3 reading. So we're going to talk about switch case statements and the ternary operator. And after that, we're going to take Quiz 2 and work on an in-class assignment after Quiz 2 has been completed. So before we get started, any questions on the assignment, which is due tomorrow at midnight? Everyone doing well on that? Last chance to really ask questions right now. So if you do have anything, feel free to ask. Okay, well, in that case, we are going to start talking about the switch case statement then. So as you should have seen in your reading, this was the example that they gave for the switch case statement. So when we're writing a switch case statement, we start out by saying switch, the variable that contains the values we want to switch on, and then a bunch of case statements based on what value would be contained in that variable. So we read in dog age years and then switch on dog age years. So let's say we type 0. Our case 0 would execute, or the input that we typed in, 0 would match the case 0, and we would print this print right here. If we did 1, we'd print this here, and so on and so forth. So whenever we match one of these cases, we print this, and then immediately go down to the bracket and continue executing statements afterwards. So the other thing to note is if we don't match anything in our switch case statement, we are going to run the default action, which is this final statement here. The one thing that is worth also noting is we do need these break statements after every single case. I'll run through an example and show you what will happen if we don't have those break statements. So let's just make a little file here. So we'll just read into A. And then we will switch on A. So we have brackets to open and close, and then inside those brackets we have our case statements. So let's say case 0, so this will execute when A is 0. We will just output A is 0. And that's all we'll do for right now. Missing a semicolon after my break there. So nothing executed because none of the cases that we wrote had matched. If we ran this again and we said 0, then it would output A as 0. So let's say we wanted to output something when there was no matches. So default no matches. So we input 10 this time, and it'll tell us no matches. Again, we input 0, it'll tell us A is 0. Go back again. Let's make another case. So let's say case 1. So that didn't work. What went wrong there? I didn't change the text that was being printed, so I need to go in there and just change that text. Now it's 1, now it's 0, and anything else you put in doesn't match. So that's the basics of switch case. So typically we would either use an integer or a character when we're doing this. So let's say we read in a character instead. So we need to change our format identifier here to be C instead of I. And then we need to do this. So we could say, let's say we wanted to do our calculator example. So we could switch on our operator, and we could do something like this. So let's actually go through. I'll just rewrite the entire calculator example again here. So we're going to read in an integer, character, and then another integer. So we'll do, change that to C, and change that to C. So we'll do read in A as our first integer, B is our, not B, C. Should have arranged these slightly different, but that's fine. And then B is our second integer. So we'll switch on C. And let's make another variable for res. So if our operator, so we're switching on C, so this would be one integer on the left, one integer on the right, and the character operator in the middle. So we're going to switch on that operator. If we see that that is a plus, we'll say res equals, what's it, A plus B. If it's a minus, we'll say res equals A minus B. And what we could do is we could say right in here, we could output what result is, or what we could do is go all the way down to the bottom and say result is, so we'll print it only once. We could again do something like this. We could remove it here and put it here and put it here, but that kind of isn't the best way to do it, because if we just put it down at the bottom, we only have to write that statement once. So run it again. So we'll do 10 plus 10, result is 20. 10 minus 10, result is 0. So a switch case statement is really great when you have an if, else if, else if, else if, else, and you're only really testing one thing. Now, it's worth noting that we can only test whether or not C is equal to the value specified here. We can't do more complex operations. So if we do need to do more complex tests, evaluations, things like that, we do need to use if, else if, else if, else, and so on and so forth. But if we just have one single value, then we need to take different actions based on that value. The calculator example is really good at showing why a switch case statement is useful. Then a switch case statement is in fact very useful. So just remember that, so we'll do this example now. So let's say I forget my break here. So what's actually going to happen is we're going to execute this line right here, and since we don't have a break, we're actually going to go right here and execute this line in addition to the first line. So if I go and I compile this program again, and I say A plus 10, it's actually going to output 0, which is completely unexpected. So if we do leave off our break statement here, if we don't have a break right here, like this, so if we don't have that, so we're going to execute this line, we're going to execute this line, and we're going to finally see this break and continue executing right here. You can select that line right here. So make sure that if you are doing the switch case statements, you do need a break after every single line. It's just the way C is, unfortunately, that we do need those break statements after every single line. So let's see here. And of course, any of these cases are completely optional. You don't need any of this. All this can go away if you wanted it to. But you can keep that if you so choose. So again, we'll match C. If C matches, or if C, whatever variable we specify here, we can specify any variable we want. Let's say we wanted to specify a literal instead of a variable. That's completely valid as well. We'll only ever match one thing, but that's also valid. We could, again, specify any other variable we wanted to. And whatever it matches, it will execute starting right below this case. So just remember, we say case, what we want to match, a colon, and then start saying our statements, then end it with a break. So that's pretty much switch case statements. When you're working on the in-class assignment today, I'd like you to use a switch case statement to solve that problem. You don't necessarily have to, but it is a problem that I think works well with the switch case statement. So that's that. Any questions about switch case? Okay, so next thing we're going to talk about is the ternary operator. Not necessarily something that I want you to know, but it is something the text uses a little bit, so it's worth knowing exactly what's going on when you see it. So the basics of the ternary operator are we put a variable on the left, we say equals, and then in parentheses we specify a condition, followed by a question mark, and then the value to store inside this variable on the far left if this condition is true. So if this condition is true, we will take the value specified here and we'll store it inside the variable specified on the left of the equal sign. If the condition is false, then we will take the value specified here and we'll store it inside the variable. So in this example, let's say we have b and it's set to 10. So we test if b is equal to 10, and if it is true, then we take this 10 and we store it inside a. But let's say we have b and it's 9, so this test will fail. Here's my mouse, there it is. So this test will fail, and instead of taking this 10 and putting it inside a, we take the value specified on the right and put it inside a. So just like we've talked about before, in addition to just variables, in addition to just literals, we can also specify variables here. So we could say a, or we could say b, or we could say any other variable that we currently are using, and we could put a variable or a literal here, or we could put a variable or a literal here. So there is a semicolon following this, so just note that that's not what I wanted to do. There is a semicolon following that, so just keep that in mind. So ternary operator, you can see the equivalence here. If we have if statements and associated else statements, where there's only one if statement and only one else statement, and we are just doing a single assignment and a single test, we can simplify that down. We can simplify this entire code down to one line with the ternary operator. So let's go through, do a few examples. Let's say we have int a equals 10, int b equals 20, and then int c. So we'll take c and then equals. So inside of our parentheses here will be our condition, and then we will, that's not what we want the question mark, and this would be true, and this would be false. So whatever we want the value to be, whatever we want c's value to be when this condition evaluates to true, will go here. Whenever we want c's value to be when the condition specified here is false, we'll go over here, right here. So let's do that. Let's test if a is equal to 10. We'll set c equal to, let's set c equal to a if a is equal to 10, and set c equal to b if a is not equal to 10. So then we'll print it out quick. So I did leave the return statement off there, so it will give me a warning, but it will still output the correct result. So in this case, a was in fact equal to 10, but if we go back in it, let's change a to equal 1. So now that condition will be false. Got to recompile it to get the right results. So now we will be setting c equal to b because of the ternary operator. So any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward. Just thought I'd let you know a little bit more about that. All right. In that case, last chance to ask questions before we start the quiz. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and do that. For this one? Yeah, and I'll post these soon too. So the quiz material won't be over any of the switch case or ternary stuff. It'll just be over the stuff we've covered Tuesday and before. Okay. We'll talk about that in a bit here. I'm going to get everybody else started, and then we'll talk. Okay, in that case, you're free to start quiz 2. So let's look at on D2L. You have 15 minutes to complete. Password is February. Once complete, work on the in-class assignment posted on D2L. So go over here, click right here, and then complete this problem. So do complete the problem with the switch case statement, because just some practice working on the switch case statement. But here is the quiz, and feel free to start. I might have changed the password. Give me 1 second to check. I don't think I might have. What? Okay. I think I did lower. Give me 1 second. I think I did lowercase, but I'm. Okay, yeah, it's just lower.